Hey everyone, my name is Steele Johnson. I'm a hobby photographer here on YouTube, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Canon EOS Rebel G. So this video isn't sponsored per se, but my old diving teammate Brandon Losciavo sent me this camera to use and to try out and to test, and so Brandon, thanks for sending this over. Not only did he send this camera over, he sent a bunch of rolls of film and this Canon 40mm f2.8 lens. So I've had this camera for a few months, and I didn't finish one roll of film through this camera until this past weekend. So you're gonna see some images from Louisville, you're gonna see some images from Franklin, Tennessee, you're gonna see some images from Southern California. That's just kind of how it is. So what can I say about the Canon EOS Rebel G? It is essentially a DSLR without the digital aspect. With this camera, you've got the Canon interchangeable lens system. You can use EF mount cameras like this Canon 40mm, and any of my modern lenses would work on this camera, and the autofocus works flawlessly. So this camera has manual shooting modes, it's got aperture priority, shutter speed priority, all those normal things you would see on a camera. It's essentially a DSLR just in a film body. Every image you're gonna see in this video, I didn't shoot manual for. And I know that's like the cardinal sin of photographers in general and on YouTube, but again, bear with me, I'm a hobby photographer and I just want something that's easy to use and I don't wanna think too much. And so all these images I shot using aperture priority. And I did that because I really wanted to see, is this going to be a camera that I can just bring with me, not think too much, kind of have a point and shoot vibe to it where I'm not, manually focusing and manually doing all my different stuff with a light meter. I just want something that's point and shoot, but good quality. And I'm happy to say this really is that. Even though this camera is not a point and shoot, it is still a pretty small profile. With this 40mm pancake lens, it is small enough to fit in my hand, or if I wear a crossbody bag, it can slide right in and go with me everywhere. I don't know how much the camera weighs. I really don't care about that. It's super light, it's super easy to carry around, and I really didn't notice it on me when I was out taking photos or out going to dinner or seeing family. I was bringing it with me and it was just a great shooter. The biggest thing I loved about this camera was the autofocus. If you've seen my previous videos, you know the one thing I hate more than anything about photography is manual focus. And with my Minolta, it's all manual focus, and my autofocus Minolta Maxim 3000i doesn't work anymore. And having something that is autofocus, it's sharp, it's fast, makes the shooting experience so much better for me personally. The camera is incredibly easy to load. You just pop the film in, you pull it over to this little red line back here, and then you close it up and it auto winds to the first frame. 36. Something else I love about this camera compared to all the other film cameras that I've personally used is it actually tells me what frame I'm on, how many I have left, and it's 100% accurate. When you shoot your last image on a roll, it auto rewinds it, and it does it in just a few seconds. It's incredibly fast. It re-rolled it. Moment of truth. First roll done. It only took 3 months, but I did it. There's really not much I can say about this camera in terms of specs or whatever it might be, because it just does the job and it does it really, really well. It is the most modern feeling film camera I've personally used, which kind of has a little downside to me. One of the things I really don't love about this camera is just how sharp all the images are. When I'm shooting film, I love the soft look that film provides, and now I'm starting to realize that might not necessarily just be the film, but also the lenses. I am using a modern Canon lens on this, which is incredibly tack sharp, and I think if I would compare the images that I got through this camera to a Canon 5D Mark IV, they would look incredibly similar, and I could edit those Canon 5D Mark IV images to look like the Rebel G images. And I don't know, maybe that's just my personal preference, but the sharpness of the images, while it's a nice thing to have, it takes that film aspect away for me. And maybe that's something I need to look into, getting a more vintage lens for this camera to really combat that. For example, if we take a landscape from this camera and compare it to a landscape from my Minolta camera that's completely manual focus with a vintage lens on it, I gravitate towards that Minolta image over this one, and the film stocks are the same. While the experience I had using this camera to shoot film was my favorite by far, I don't love the fact that the images almost look more digital than they do film. And that's something that's kind of got me on the fence right now. Ultimately, shooting with this camera was an awesome experience, but the images just don't really have that film look that I've grown accustomed to over the past 6 years of shooting film. I think it would be worthwhile testing out different lenses on this camera that are old vintage lenses to see if that really brings it back to that film look I love. But if I'm doing that, I'm re-entering the field of manual focus, which the reason I loved shooting with this so much was the autofocus was just so easy and I didn't have to think. It was just so relaxing to shoot with this camera. But that's just my personal experience. All in all, it's an amazing camera. If you are wanting to get into film and you don't want to think too much, you want to throw it in aperture priority or even full auto just to kind of learn the experience of shooting film and learn how it works, this camera would be an awesome start, especially if you're already shooting digital and you've got Canon lenses lying around. Even though the images are sharper than what I'm used to in shooting film, is this a camera I'm going to keep using going forward? And the answer is yes. I loved shooting with this. It was so seamless. I felt like I could really rely on it. Unlike a lot of the point and shoots I've used on this channel over the past year, they've all broken. They've all been unreliable or had major issues with them. This one, I didn't have a single issue, and I've put 2 rolls of film through it so far, and I've loved it. So yeah, at the end of the day, I can recommend this camera for someone that's just wanting to get into it and just doesn't want to deal with manual focus and deal with light meters. You can do all that on this, and I probably will at some point, but it was just so easy to shoot with, and the images look great. While they're a little sharper than I would like, I could always add a little more softness in post, but I think it's worthwhile trying other film stocks, trying other lenses to see just how the camera operates. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new, be sure to subscribe. We just passed 600 subscribers. We're on our way to 1,000, which is really exciting. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments if you like the images from this camera. It's kind of a toss-up for me. Like, obviously they're sharp and they look good, but they don't have that film feel I'm used to, but I still kind of like it. So like I said, I've put 2 rolls of film through this camera. You only saw 1 in this video. And we're gonna talk about the second roll in the next video because while it wasn't an issue with the camera, there was a major issue with that roll, and you're gonna wanna stick around and watch that next. All right, until next time.